Sex makes you stupid if you're trying to decide if you are really falling in love with somebody or if you're just really hot for them and have great chemistry. Welcome to my Broken to Brave podcast. I'm Donna Barnes. And today I want to talk about how do you know if you're actually in love with somebody or falling in love with somebody, or are you just really chemically attracted to somebody and have great chemistry with them or just really enjoy having sex with them? Right? And honestly, sex is only supposed to be 10% of a relationship, meaning if it's good and it works, it's really only 10% of the relationship because everything else is about being in love with someone and really being someone's best friend. But if the sex doesn't work, it usually becomes 90% of a relationship because that's what you're focused on. Really true loving relationships have a wonderful balance of both. And saying it's 10% isn't to minimize it. It's just to say that you really have a great affinity for each other and that you are best friends and you enjoy spending time together and you're the first choice and someone that you want to hang out with. I mean, that's all the qualities of a great relationship in that you really genuinely care about each other. You want your partner to be happy and feel loved. You worry about them and you wish the best for them. That's all feelings of loving somebody. But if all you can think about is jumping into bed with them and you're really hot for them, and the second you see each other, you're just tearing each other's clothes off and jumping into bed together, and then you kind of don't really have anything to talk about afterwards, or you both go home to your own places, or well, it's just really about the sex, then that's just great chemistry. And that's all it is great chemistry. And it's really not a deep emotional relationship because emotional intimacy is what love is based on, in really caring about your partner and knowing them and being part of their world and being part of their daily activities and knowing their family and their friends and getting along with them and really having a life together is all emotional intimacy, which creates love. If you have great chemistry with somebody, but they really never show up to things you invite them to, such as hanging out with your friends or if you want to go do something together and they just never really engage in outside activities besides maybe taking you to dinner or to drinks and then to bed, that's just a lustful relationship. And you can try to make it more of a loving relationship by asking a little bit deeper questions about their life and things in their life. And if they've consistently refused your invitation to do things with your friends and family, maybe ask them why. I mean, not in an accusatory way, but you could say something to the effect of, hey, I've noticed that you're never, never and always are character associations, right? So I think if you say, hey, I've noticed that you haven't accepted any of my invitations to get together with my friends. Is there a reason that you don't want to meet my friends? Right? And ask, because it might not be because they're not interested in you. It might be that they have social anxiety, or they, if that's to tell that perhaps they're committed to somebody else. If they're just wanting to keep you in a bubble and they're not allowing you to be part of their life and meet their friends, and they're not wanting to meet your friends and be part of your life, that's clearly a sexual hookup kind of relationship. And be really cautious that that's not a married person or someone who's committed to somebody else, because that's a classic sign of a cheater, that they'll they'll keep you kind of in a bubble so that, the less people that know about an affair, the less likely they are to get caught, right? So if they're kind of keeping your relationship a secret, that's a massive red flag that perhaps they're not really available and that they're devoting all of that other time to somebody else. It's always worth a conversation to find out what you're insecure about. If you feel like your partner's really not that into you, first of all, don't ever say, how do you feel about me? That is never a helpful question to ask. I think if you have to ask that question, you don't really want the answer. I think you already know the answer to it. If you felt loved by your partner, you wouldn't be asking, how do you feel about me? Right? So that's your answer. And I just, yeah, I don't, all too often I hear people that say, tell me, like coaching clients tell me, they asked, how do you feel about me? And I think you've got your answer if you're already asking that question. Insecurity can really cause us to imagine that all sorts of things are going on for our partner that may or may not be true. So it's always worth a conversation. I think in a non-accusatory way, using I statements, I feel like perhaps you're not interested in getting to know my friends. Is there a reason for that? And give them an opportunity to explain themselves. And if they're not willing to answer that question, that's a massive red flag too. If you're asking questions and you're trying to get to know somebody and they're really avoiding the question or answering your question with another question and they didn't really answer your question, that's a highly manipulative tactic, by the way. But that's also a massive red flag that they're not interested in a truly loving relationship with you. In order to establish love, you really need to be open and available to answering questions and asking questions and learning deeper things about your partner, about how they feel about things and what is the most deepest desires and what's on their bucket list kind of thing, right? Although I'm not a fan of that expression, but you know what I mean? Really asking deeper questions about how they live their life and what's important to them and creating emotional intimacy. And it's a massive red flag if your partner isn't willing to either be forthcoming about things or really shuts down or just turns it back on you when you ask questions. If you're really not wanting to talk to your partner that much and you really would rather do other things and you're not wanting to invest that kind of time in conversation with your partner, that's a sex buddy, right? That's somebody that you have chemistry with, that you enjoy jumping in bed with. But if you have no interest in really talking to them or what they're doing while you're not with them, that's just a lust relationship. And there's nothing wrong with that. It depends on what you're looking for, right? Especially if you just came out of something and you're really not looking for another relationship yet, and you're really not ready to get deeply intimate in a loving relationship, but you kind of want that physical comfort. I call that a sex buddy, right? A sex buddy can be a really helpful thing if you just are missing that physical touch. Plus, it can really get you over the hump of missing an ex. Because if your ex is the last person that you've been with, you tend to pine for them more than if you've had other comfort in your life. So I'm actually a big fan of an inappropriate affair after a long-term relationship. Somebody that you absolutely have no interest in having a relationship with, but you have great chemistry with and you're really hot for, is a perfect rebound after a divorce or a long-term loving relationship, and especially if you have hard feelings around it. Because if you jump right back into something that does have the emotional intimacy, usually that fails because you're then now blurring the line with your ex and it just gets messy and then you start missing your ex, right? But if you're not having that kind of loving, intimate, emotional intimacy, but you're just doing the sexual part, then it can really help you move on. It really can. It can help break that connection really that you had with your ex if you're now hooking up with somebody new, which, they say the best way to get over somebody is to get under somebody else, right? I do think that's very true in just trying to get over somebody and your actual rebound relationship to help move you forward to be prepared to then be in a truly intimate, emotionally intimate relationship. Yes, sex is a huge part of that and a wonderful part of that. Really, the holy grail, I think, of a relationship is somebody that you have that amazing chemistry with, but that you also really have genuine feelings for and emotional intimacy with. And that starts with communication. Before you jump in bed with somebody, having enough time spent with them in having conversation, in really deep conversation, in getting to know each other. And a really great sign to tell you if your partner's good for you or not is if you get on the phone and 2 hours fly by and you still haven't ran out of things to say. That's the tell of a good relationship. And that's the primary difference. Someone left a comment on one of my previous podcasts asking, how do you know if you're in love or if it's just lust, right? Or if it's just, infatuation, really. And emotional intimacy, I think, is the big key there, in that you really care about each other. It's not just a sexual thing. It's great that it is a sexual thing, if it is, but it's not just that. Because, yeah, when the sex works, it's supposed to only be 10% of a relationship. When it doesn't work, it becomes 90% of a relationship. And I think that's also true if you're trying to decide, am I in love with this person, or am I just really hot for them? Right? If all you're thinking about is sex and that's the only interest you really have with that person, you're not in love with them. You're in lust with them, and you have great affinity for the physical with. But truly loving somebody is a lot deeper than that. It's much more emotionally intimate, which starts with communication. And a lot of one night stands happen because you go out on a first date, you're really connecting, you're talking, you stay up all night together, you talk, you have sex, and then, I don't know, are you interested in seeing the person again later? Maybe not. And I think, unfortunately, it's usually not, more often than it is. And now look, I mean, some of the greatest loves of my life, relationships, right, started exactly that way, that you just couldn't stop talking and you couldn't keep your hands off of each other, right? So, I mean, I'm not saying that that's bad. That can be the beginning of something. Try to make sure that you had enough of the conversation part before you get to the sex part, so that there is a little bit more caring and intrigue and depth to that relationship before you really make it a physical relationship, because it'll tend to last longer that way. How long you've been together, I think, is also relevant in, are you actually in love, or are you just really infatuated with this person? It takes a while to really develop feelings for somebody and to really get to know them. And actually, psychologists believe that true love doesn't start until that I can't get enough of you phase kind of starts to cool off. And while I like to think that I can't keep my hands off of you can last for a decade, right? Or more, right? Like the really best relationships, that comes and goes a little bit. But I think if you really genuinely have emotional intimacy with your partner and you really have a great affinity for them and you're attracted to them, I think that goes a long way. Like the just do it for Nike, like, the exercise slogan, I've long said, I think really applies to sex too. If you think you're not in the mood, but you have a genuine affinity and attraction for your partner, if you just open your mind and let your partner get you in the mood, you probably will too. And you'll enjoy it. It's not like they have to force you to do it. It's just about having an open mind to it, right? So I think that's how you keep the love alive in a relationship too. The beginning of a relationship is always the most fun and exciting, where you're discovering new things about each other and you're learning about each other. And that's all part of the process of falling in love. But if you're really not learning about that person's life and they're not introducing you to their friends and family and taking you places and having activities to do with you, then that's not moving towards falling in love. That's really more about physical intimacy. Really loving someone comes from spending a lot of quality time with them and talking about everything. When you really connect with somebody, you can like, your topics go all over the place while you're talking, because you're just so interested in each other that you just never run out of things to talk about. That's really the beginning of falling in love, supporting them and being there for them, even when it's not easy, as long as it's balanced, as long as one person at one time might need a little extra emotional support, then give that to them. That's what a partner is for. But hopefully that's not always the way it is, right? Because then it becomes lopsided and it's not a healthy relationship. But if at one point someone needs a little extra support and then the other partner needs something, a little support, that's a genuinely loving relationship where you're both there for each other and you both support each other. You genuinely want their happiness and care about their well-being, is how you know that you're in love with somebody. Relationships are really easy when they're right. I've had so many people come to me for coaching because they're in some really difficult relationship and they're jumping through hoops trying to get the attention of their partner that they're crazy about, but they're just not getting their needs met. And after coaching them, they finally realize that that person's really not that into them. And they move on and they find somebody new. And then they call me all excited because they can't, like, it's so easy. They just keep saying it's so easy. And that's how it should be. It's easy when it's right. When two people really connect and they want to spend time together and they want to see each other, they do. It's easy because you both want to be together. So you're not wondering what the other one's doing and feeling disappointed. And I'll tell you, that's a big piece of it, is how often does your partner disappoint you? I think is a big key in what their intention is with you. If you can count on your partner doing the things that they say they're going to do and showing up consistently, if you reach out to them, they respond, or they reach out to you if you're not reaching out to them. I mean, that's what I mean by easy, that you're both participating in the relationship because you're both really enjoying getting to know each other and enjoying each other's company. That's all part of creating a healthy, loving relationship and falling in love with somebody. So if that's what's happening, then yes, it does sound like you're on your way to being in a loving relationship. But if it really boils down to the sex, then that's just what it is. And there's nothing wrong with that if that's okay with you. It's helpful sometimes to just have a purely physical relationship that's nothing more. But if you're looking for more than that, don't waste your time in a relationship that's really not getting your needs met. If you want more and your partner's not giving it to you, though unfortunately, it usually causes you to become needy and start chasing after your partner. When you chase something, it runs. Don't forget that. People do what they want to do, and it's easy when it's right. I think is the takeaway to, are you in love and are you in lust? And is the sex the, whole point of the relationship? Does the whole relationship revolve around your sex life? Then that's really just a chemistry thing. And it's probably not going to last, right? Most relationships only last 3 to 6 months because they're based on that. You meet somebody, you're hot for them, you have great chemistry, you're off and running. And then you start getting to know each other and you start realizing, yeah, we really don't have that much in common. Or sometimes it's just, I really don't even enjoy your company that much, right? So I think, unfortunately, that's the norm. So if you are spending quality time together and you're having great sex, but it's really only 10% of the relationship because you're also doing lots of other things together and you're out with each other's friends and each other's family and you're going to events together and doing things together, then that is the path to falling in love and creating emotional intimacy. And that's what we're all looking for. So if you think you have that, be grateful and try not to mess it up, right? Like, I think if you're feeling insecure about anything, it's always helpful to talk to your partner about it because your imagination is not your friend in relationships and failed expectations. If you have an expectation and you're starting to get upset that it's not being met, make sure your partner is well aware that that's important to you. Because if you have an expectation about something and you haven't expressed it to your partner, it's on you if your partner's not getting your needs met because they don't know. Like, you don't know what you don't know, right? So if something's important to you, you need to tell your partner. And I've had clients say to me, well, if he loved me, he'd know what I want. No, that's a really immature attitude. You can love somebody with all of your heart and soul and you still can't read their mind. And you shouldn't have to, because a true partner in a relationship is capable of expressing the things that they want. And if that's what you're looking for, a true partnership, then you need to be capable of expressing your expectations, not in a demanding way, not in a like, I need this kind of way, but just this is really important to me. I would really love it if this could happen in a loving, very calm, inspiring way, right? Because someone really cares about us and we tell them something that's important to us, it's natural for them to want to do it. But if you get upset and you kind of angry that something didn't happen that you really wanted to happen, but you weren't crystal clear about it, you're going to cause a problem and maybe an argument. And honestly, because your partner's going to feel bad that they disappointed you, but it's on you that you didn't express yourself so that they could make you happy. So in my next podcast, I think I'm going to talk about dating someone who's never been married after a certain age, like 40, because especially in New York, as a New Yorker, as a dating coach in New York, so many people have said to me, oh, come on, if a guy's not married by the time he's 40, there's something wrong with him. And my standard response is always, not in New York City. And I think that's true in general of very career-driven people and people that are really highly focused on becoming successful. And I'll tell you, years fly by before you realize it, right? So in my next podcast, I think I'm going to talk about dating someone who's never been married a little bit later in life. So leave me your comments, leave me your questions. I always like to know what you think. And I'm here for coaching. If you're really struggling with something or you really identify with something that I said and you need a little deeper help on that, find the link in the comments below and sign up for coaching with me. I still do private coaching sessions and I'd be more than happy to talk to you. So thanks for listening. And I look forward to seeing you in my next podcast.